Hello and welcome to the Black Complementary Therapist. I'm your host, Pauline Blackwood of Pendulum Massage. I'm a London-based massage therapist who works out of my studio near Canary Wharf called Pendulum Massage. Thank you for your ears. So in today's show, I'd like to let you know that today we're going to talk about stress. And it's a big one. And it follows on from the one on inflammation and why complementary therapists who are Black are needed now more than ever. And I think it's an important one because stress affects all of us in different sorts of ways. We know the general responses to stress, but we need to keep being reminded. Anyway, to start this show, as always, we're going to breathe. And today, I'm going to give little but the physical response to breath as an observation. And today's physical observation, I hope you'll join me with, is the expansion of the rib cage. We know that the rib cage expands and relaxes with each and every breath, but sometimes we forget how beautiful and thorough that can be. So get yourself seated comfortably or standing comfortably, whatever position you're in. You may be lying. If you're driving, you can still do the breath. And on the in-breath, which is smooth and light and luscious, we can feel the expansion of the rib cage. And on the out-breath, how it relaxes and allows the lungs to deflate. The one observation I'll give you is, should you decide to compress your abdomen and draw your belly button to your backbone, that feeling of expansion in the rib cage will be greater and even more interesting. So it's up to you. Let's breathe. That's lovely. Thank you for joining me with the breath. So again, welcome to the Black Complementary Therapist podcast. I'm your host, Pauline, and I'm glad you're here because this is a space where we can explore wellness, healing, and the power of complementary therapies, especially through a Black lens. And today, like I said, we're going to look into the subject, the tools and insights that support the mind, the body, and the spirit around the subject of stress. So grab yourself a cup. Let's have a chat. Let's go on with it. This last 2 months I've been stressed in good and bad ways. And the reason is because I have just moved. So I've moved my treatment room and it's not even half a mile away from the old one. But in some respects, it's a quantum leap away. And it's a quantum leap away because one has to get one's head around moving in the first place. And there are so many silly little jobs. And there are so many silly little jobs one has to do. Boxes, tape, putting things in organised boxes, organising one's life so you have the energy to do the things. Crying for help. And sometimes help just arrives and sometimes it doesn't. And I am ever so grateful to my sister who came all the way from Sandwell and Dudley to help me, and my hubby who came from home to help me. So I had help at the most stressful points in the journey, and that was wonderful. So anyway, today we're going to talk about stress. So stress is a big one, and the World Health Organization describes stress as a state of worry or mental tension caused by difficult situations. And stress is a natural human response to those difficult situations. When we have this type of stress, we respond by meeting our challenges and threats to our lives. And everyone gets stressed to some greater or lesser degree. The important thing is how we respond to it. So let's have a good look at how stress affects us. Well, stress affects our minds and our bodies and our spirit. When we have our day-to-day activities, we deal with stress in different ways. Some stress is fun. So I can remember going to a theme park and going on some stupid ride. I don't even know why I went on it. It just seemed like the thing to do once you're in a theme park. Well, it went up vertically and I was pressed against a seat, this particular ride. And then when one got to the top, there was a crest. And then what happened was you went over the crest and then went into some sort of free fall. But the free fall was via going upside down as well. And at that moment, I really felt like I lost my stomach. And I really felt like I lost my bowels. One could say, given an opportunity, they could have been emptied. But on this occasion, they were not. And coming out the other side of that was this sense of, my God, I lived through it. That was superb. I want to do that again. Or in other cases, I don't want to do that again. Other stresses are more gentle, obviously. So the stress of speaking publicly is a different sort of stress. It's not so adrenaline based for me, maybe for others, but not for me. It is one of those things one prepares for. And so the more you manage that stress, the easier it is to speak in public. It's an interesting one. Other forms of stress are different, and how one responds to them is different as well. So at the moment in London, there is a heightened political atmosphere, and people deal with that in different sorts of ways. So recently there was an incident where somebody wanted my attention and to talk with me. And I was at the end of my day. I knew that I was stressed and I didn't want to talk or engage with anybody at that time. I did not have the energy to give. In that situation, I moved away from this person, but they continued to move towards me. There was a point where I felt, you are stressing me out, and yet my response to you is now without stress. Because I had a clear mind, I felt as though if I were in danger, I would deal with it, but I didn't want to, so I actually read a riot act, moved out the way, and that was the end of the situation. On another occasion, not even 3 weeks after that, somebody spoke to me again in a public setting. They asked me whether I wanted a seat. They were standing, I was standing. It was a train. I told them, I'm good, thank you. I'm only going a couple of stops. They continued to discuss why they felt I needed a seat. I continued to tell them that I didn't want one. But the thing that I did differently this time, in my sense of calm in that situation, was I engaged that person in chat. And on this occasion, the outcome was so much better. That one's response to a situation is the central thing, and getting the skills to deal with different situations that could become stressful is ever so important. One side of the coin, I was out, I was tired, I didn't want to engage with anybody, I wanted to just be left alone, but my response was forceful and angry. On the second occasion where someone wanted to engage with me, I gave them a small amount of my attention, and in that time I was able to keep calm and they were calm, and the situation was completely different. So stress and how we handle stress is ever so important, and the skills we can learn through our own self-reflection. How does stress affect us? Well, stress is good in little doses. And as we grow up from being a baby, dealing with situations of stress, we're taught these can be overcome by having a response from our caregivers as children. We learn how to manage our stress. How does stress affect us? Well, stress affects both the mind and the body. A little bit of stress is okay. It can help us perform daily tasks, but too much stress can cause physical and mental health problems. And so we need to learn how to cope with stress so that it doesn't affect our physical and mental well-being and we don't feel overwhelmed. Stress makes it hard for us to relax, and it can make it hard for us to feel our full range of emotions, and can come with feelings of fear, anxiety, and we can become irritable. We can find it difficult to concentrate, and we may even get physical representations of that stress through upset tummy, pains in our muscles, a headache. We may even get a loss of appetite. Chronic stress, that stress that's ongoing, may be made worse from health conditions. So if your body's already dealing with, inflammation, or your body's dealing with an autoimmune condition like lupus, or if you have heart disease, stress on top of that can actually make it worse. It can worsen your symptoms. And some people deal with chronic stress with alcohol, because alcohol can heighten or deaden emotions, tobacco, which changes the way our body responds to stress, and even additional food that we don't need in our diet. They may be things that create and worsen stress responses in our bodies. Stressful situations can also make mental health conditions worse by deepening depression and anxiety. And sometimes we need help with those sort of symptoms, whether it become in the form of stress management, whether it become in the form of some mental health assistance with talk therapies and the like, or rest. Stress can become persistent and affect our everyday life, and one needs to be mindful of that. So getting a handle on stress is ever so important. Nobody responds to stress in the same way. We are all different. And how we cope with stress is different from person to person. So for you and for me, we need to find our own way to deal with stress in our way. Sometimes we have difficult situations in life, like moving house, or getting married, or dealing with divorce, or changing something fundamental in your life. All of these things are natural, challenging situations. So if you have an interview or an exam, or your job's not 100% on it so far as job security is going, even people can stress you out. So many people's stress reduces over time as their situations improve. And we need to work on that. We need to work on improving what situations we're in, or our relationships, or our work settings, or perhaps it's an economic thing where things ease off because we're earning more, or we're saving more, or something that we've been spending time and money on is now coming to an end. Stress tends to be widespread during events such as economic times, political times. We have times in our lives where things are going crazy for whole populations all at once. And we need to be able to work through these situations, not only as individuals, but as communities. And this is the important thing. We are not alone. Sometimes we feel so stressed that we feel that we can't function, we can't work, we can't deal with this. And if the stress is so much that it's affecting the way you live and your ability to cope with life situations in general, it's time to ask for help. And it may be help from somebody spiritual, it may be help from medical establishment, it may be help from community, but either way, it's important to ask for help if the situation is just too much for you to cope with and you feel like you're not thriving and you're just living. So stress we'll deal with with some form of stress management. And stress management is one of those protocols that we can call in that can help us get through this situation. It's tried, it's tested. We all know that if you've got a plant and it's in a pot and it's on your window ledge and the window ledge overlooks nature and gets good sun in the day and not too hot and not too cold, that plant will be okay for a bit, won't it? It'll be fine. And then we remember, well, actually, that plant could do with a bit of water every now and again. And it could do with maybe some plant food every few months. And when it thrives in that spot, perhaps we'll turn it around so that it doesn't lean too much in one direction. And when it gets bigger, we'll repot it and it will be happy and thrive for more years to come. Well, us humans are a bit like that as well. How we manage stress is important. Just like that plant, we don't want it to be stressed out. We want it to grow calmly and in its own way. So let's have a look at this then. We need a life with routine in order to help us deal with life stresses more easily. So having a daily schedule is pretty good. So if we know that we're going to eat, not necessarily at set times, but we'll have designated meal times. And if possible, we'll eat in company. We'll sleep well. We'll do our daily jobs around our work and our home. We'll have some exercise. And we'll have some fun. These things are things we should do in order for us to deal with stress better. Let's get a little bit deeper. Sleeping consistently and sleeping well. Very important. So good habits with sleeping. I believe some people call it good sleep hygiene. Sounds odd, doesn't it? Sleep hygiene. But be consistent with it. Make sure your sleeping place is quiet. Where the lighting is low. Where you have a comfortable temperature. If you can, limit use of electronica before sleep. Give yourself at least an hour or two away from the computer and TV before sleep. Maybe a good boring book. How about that? Or a nice bit of music. It's suggested that large meals are avoided just before sleep, as well as caffeine and alcohol, because alcohol kind of robs you of that restful sleep that you need. Caffeine, of course, gives you energy now, away from the future in effect, which isn't so handy. And large meals means that your body, all the blood supply is going to your stomach and your alimentary canal instead of being distributed around your body to deal with all those repairs that you need to do in your sleep time. So good sleep comes with having all of those things in a row like ducks. Also, if you have enough movement within your day, for example, exercise or just general movement and moving about, that is really a good thing because you're using up the energy that requires you to need more sleep in the night. Connecting with others. Making sure that you are in connection with your community is very important. Now, your community is usually family and friends, people you trust. You connect with them at times throughout your day or throughout your week to lift your spirits, and it helps you to feel less stressed. And often when we connect with others, they have that sense of shared understanding. They may well know what you're going through. Eating healthily. When we eat healthily, we give our body all the nourishment that it needs to keep us healthy. Eating a balanced diet, and with regular intervals is really important, and drinking enough fluids to keep us hydrated and allow the body to digest and take on all the nutrients that we need. Making sure that we have a balanced diet, that it contains fresh fruits and vegetables, colourful foods, maybe some ferments, and in the right quantities so that we are eating healthily and nourishing our body with what it needs. Exercise regularly is very important. Now, this does not require you to go to the gym. Lots of people exercise in lots of different ways. I can remember seeing people, when you go on holiday and you see somebody and they've never been in a gym in their life, and yet they are healthy, and they are healthy because they're going about their daily business, fetching and carrying, doing what they do, being active. In London and places like big cities in the urban lifestyle, this is less likely because you have to travel further perhaps and use public transport or drive to do that. When you go to work, you may be seated and, you're actually paid to be seated. It's danger money, accept it. And because of this occupation that you may have or that we have that's less active, we need to exercise regularly. Now, the exercise may be walking or cycling, it may be gardening or dancing, it may be the gym or running or playing sports or joining in artistic endeavours where you're moving about and being kinesthetic. Yes, indeed, let's do that. So the more intensive the exercise, the better. Obviously, so long as you're not stressing your body, but a little stress is a good thing, right? So, regular exercise, very important. And lastly, the news. We don't have to have all of it. We are the audience. We are not the consumer. And therefore, we can turn it off. We can turn off the news. We can turn off social media, and we can limit the time we spend following the news if it increases stress. And of late, I have to... bloody barking. That's how I deal with that stress. And of late, spending too much time with the news has been an issue for me, and I've changed that. I've changed that in such a way that now I measure how much news I get, and when I see nonsense, I step away. All right, so that's the issue of stress and learning how to manage stress with simple routines, regular meals, plenty of sleep, connecting with community, eating healthy, exercising when I can, and limiting time following the news media. Let them keep their salaciousness, and let's live our lives with true compassion. I think that's the main thing. Okay, so I think that's about it on this one. What I'd like to say is that it's been a pleasure talking with you, as always. My apologies for not getting this episode out on time. The reason was simply because I was moving, and it's a lot for a girl to do. I'm telling you, it is a lot. And sometimes you just have to say, right, I'm really sorry, but if I try and do this in a time in the fashion of every 14 days, regardless of what's going on in my life, it will stress me out. And this podcast is for fun. And bearing that in mind, I hope that you enjoyed it. So thank you for listening to this episode of the Black Complementary Therapist podcast. As always, I'd love to hear what you think about what I've chatted about today, what your thoughts are, what really floated your boat, what you'd like to chat about let me start again. I'd like you I'd like to thank you for listening to this episode of the Black Complementary Therapist. I'd love to know what you think about this episode and what resonated with you, and how you might take any of these ideas on in your wellness journey within your own complementary therapist business. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please share it with your friends or leave a review, 5-star please, because I want to get some good things from this. It really helps people to find me also if I have these 5-star reviews. You're welcome to get in touch with me. I usually leave some links in the show notes and some connecting web links and such like. You can find me on social media as the Black Complementary Therapist, but also as Pendulum Massage. So until next time, look after yourself. Be good, drink your water, join your community, do your things, and enjoy life, because your well-being matters. Okay, take care then, and bye.